So many things happened before logical thought and thinking kicked in. We were infants, and infants have needs. There's many developmental stages of emotional growth that we need to go through, and if we don't complete each stage, we get stuck at a certain point and never grow emotionally past that, or it's very slow increments. That's why we have to go back and do the work. We have to go back to that stage where our emotional development was halted and go back to that point and free ourselves from it so that we can grow emotionally. And as an adult, to go back to that, it takes time. We're raising families, we have jobs, social life, health, exercise, just a little bit of everything that you don't have the time you had when you were a kid, when you needed to go through these steps. And the first step is we all have narcissistic needs. If you're human, that's a fact. And those narcissistic needs can't be filled completely. No parent is going to do this perfectly. So everybody on this planet has work to do to fill those needs on their own. But those needs are, we need it to be adored. We need it to be loved and cared and nurtured and safe. We need something to depend on. We needed reliability. We needed to know that we could trust the people who were raising us, who we were supposed to trust, who was supposed to give us everything we needed for a good start in life. If a married couple stops relating to each other and that relationship starts to go downhill, too often they think having a child will fix this. What ends up happening is there's a role reversal that happens. This child is brought into the world to meet the parents' needs instead of the child being brought into this world so that the parents could meet the child's needs. See, we really needed to see those positive mirroring faces. We needed to feel loved and adored and cherished. We needed to feel like we could do no wrong, that we were okay. But what ends up happening is if you have a parent who didn't have their narcissistic needs met, they're going to use the child to fill them up. Instead of filling the child up, they are depleting the child of basic human needs. It's backwards. So we start with this huge, huge deficiency. See, we can't really think and process and comprehend what is going on, but emotionally we can feel it. We realize that there are things that we do that make this person who is standing in front of us, who we don't even understand is mother or father or aunt or grandmother, whoever is raising us, we don't even know who they are. We just instinctively know that our survival depends on it. I can't at 8 months get up, walk to the kitchen, take some eggs, scramble them up, and cook them and make toast and coffee for myself. I don't get fed. I don't get anything to drink. I don't get a diaper change. I don't have anything without this huge human that I'm looking at every day. So instinctively, I know that I need to see that positive mirroring face. I need to see this person love me and care for me and be there for me, because I don't have the ability to do it for myself because I'm an infant. So when things are done that cause us to get hit, left alone, put in a room by ourselves, that shaming face that we see, we learn not to have those feelings anymore. We take them and we split them off, and they are never to be seen again. On the other hand, we know when we are doing stuff that is met with love and care and affection. See, it's conditional, right? So I have this needy caregiver who needs her needs met and filled up because she can't do it herself, never took the time, never learned, didn't look at her own deficiencies, and she has a child to fill those needs up. I may not know that intellectually, but I know that emotionally. So I have these two halves. I have the half that was unlovable, was met with unwanted feelings, emotions, expressions, and actions. And if I'm going to survive as a child, as an infant, I need to bury those. And the only thing that I can be is the feelings that are met with positivity and love and smiles and rewards. There is the divide within us. It is not a child's responsibility to fill a parent's needs. It is the parent's responsibility to bring another human into this world and to fill them up with their basic needs. Most people don't get that. I can tell you this, my kids don't meet my needs. I can't shame them for that. They are not here for me. I am here for them. I am here to fill them up. I am here to get them ready to get out in the world. I am here to be there for them, for whatever they need, whether I like it or not. I took on this responsibility to bring this precious human into this world, to nurture and care for them, to put my neediness aside, my ego aside, my pride aside, for them. That was my job, and that was my responsibility. And I did it to the best of my ability, and it wasn't good enough all the time. I apologize to my kids often. When I realize that I'm wrong, I say I'm sorry. I don't think I've ever heard an I'm sorry when I was a kid. I understand it was a different generation. But an I'm sorry goes a long, long way. How many of us needed to hear, I'm sorry. This was about me and my past and has nothing to do with you. I took it out on you. I was wrong. I shouldn't have did that. How great would that have been to hear? So we got this split between us. We have the parts of us that were lovable, the parts of us that weren't lovable. We gravitate obviously towards the parts that were lovable. The unlovable parts we bury. If the people who were supposed to love us no matter what found that unlovable in us, how are we supposed to find that lovable within us? So you think about trust, right? If I never learned how to trust my caregivers, how could I possibly learn to trust myself or anybody else? If it wasn't modeled for you, how could you know how to do it? So we have these narcissistic needs that were never met. We don't know it. We don't realize it. You know, a family system is like being dropped into the middle of a movie without knowing the storyline. This movie has been going on for generations and generations, and you get dropped into it And by the feelings, emotions, and actions that were found lovable in you, that is the role that you take. You take that role on. Is it us? No. Were any of you allowed to have your anger? Have sadness? Did you ever hear words like, I'll give you something to cry about? What do you have to be sad about? I don't know what I have to be sad about, but I'm pretty freaking sad. But I'm not allowed to feel that. And that has to go somewhere. So we didn't learn these things, and we took on this role and we adopted it before we even knew that we did it. We are fulfilling the people who raised us needs and have completely disregarded our own needs. And this goes on and on and on. And for me, when I was younger and I had a lot of energy, it didn't seem to matter because I was so busy living life and just accepting this role. I didn't know any other way. I didn't know that I wasn't being true or authentic. I was being the guy that got the most love and attention and affection. Growing up, I adopted that role and I took it with me my entire life. And over time, these things, these roles come out more often than not in relationships. When you start to get into a relationship, I am bringing my entire family system, that belief system, and that role into this relationship. But so's the other person. They have their role and they have their beliefs and they have their family systems. And then the two ears start to butt heads. And we were never taught to look at ourselves in that way, to see if it was a role or a pattern or what it was. See, we were blamed when we were a certain way for not being the way the people who raised us wanted us to be. So when we get into relationships, when we get older, when that person is not being what we think they should be, we blame. Some of us will blame ourselves for not being good enough. Others will blame the other person for not meeting our needs. It's nobody's responsibility to do that, but that's how we were programmed. That's what we learned. And failed relationship after failed relationship after failed relationship, sooner or later, you just get tired of the same patterns. Do your relationships start the same, have the same beginning, same middle, and same end? The only thing that is consistent with every relationship I've ever had is me. They were all different women. I was the only constant. Why was this failing? Why did it always seem to fail? Because I was still bonded to my caregivers. I was still loyal to that family system. People still had to be a certain way from the way I was raised and the way I was brought up. And when they weren't, I couldn't understand it. And they were looking at me the same way. A parent's job is to get a child ready to get out in the world and live their own life as an individual. We are supposed to leave home in our late teens, latest early 20s. We need to divorce our parents and divorce that family system and go out in the world and figure out who we are. But we don't do that. We take that system with us and we carry it. And we try to recreate it somewhere else in the world because that's all we know. We don't know anything different. So we're looking for that. I remember when I started to do this work, which feels like 1,000 years ago at this moment, I secretly wanted to get my family on board with this. I would leave books around. I would leave audiobooks playing that they would hear it. See, I didn't want to do it alone. I didn't want to leave the system. I didn't know who I was without that family system. I didn't know who I was when I wasn't in my role. I didn't know it at the time. I was too afraid to leave. See, in my family growing up, it's either you get on board with what we're doing and the way we are, or you're out. That's it. Those are the two choices. There is no middle ground. There is no individuality. It is you adapt to this and you stay in it and you feed us, this system, these people. And if you don't, we will shame you. And man, that'll keep you there for a long time, because leaving is the hardest thing. It is so painful to leave that family system. It is lonely. It is isolating. It is mind-boggling. You feel like you're the black sheep. You're the only one that doesn't fit in. It's hard enough in this world. It is a lonely world. And doing it alone with no support feels impossible at times. We should have did this earlier. We should have been given a blessing to say, go out in the world and find out who you are and where you belong and be who you really want to be. But that's not the message we get. The message we get is, don't leave me. You're responsible for my feelings, and we need to keep this shiny, glossy facade for the world to see. And if you come up anything short of that, we're going to let you know how unhappy we are with you. And when you're a child, you carry that shame. See, for me, I believe abuse is the transfer of shame. If your caregivers did not deal with their shame, and they acted shameless, and they took their shame and put it on you, that's what abuse is. It's transferring the shame from one person to another. They should be in therapy. They should be dealing with their issues. They should be looking at who they are and how they could be better for the people around them. But it's too difficult. It's easier to shame, mold, and shape a child into what you want so that you never have an uncomfortable feeling ever. Because by the time this kid gets older, he's going to know what's acceptable and what's not. And he's too frightened to do anything about it because he knows there's going to be a loss of love. And really, truly, we just want to be loved for who we are. And if we can't be loved for who we are, we would rather be loved for somebody we're not than not be loved at all. That's sad. That's sad, that's hurtful, and that's damaging. And then we carry this on later in life. The work I'm doing now, I should have did at 17. It should have been encouraged, separation and individuality, but it's not. It's a facade that needs to be kept so that those people don't feel their shame, their sadness, their depression, the abuse that they suffered. It's not about blaming. It's about understanding. I'm sure they did the best they could with what they had. But later on in life, when you have the discussion and you try to express and explain how you feel and why you think you feel it. If they close that door on you, that's their choice. And you're going to have to make yourself okay with it. We all kind of have this little picture in our head of, what the happy family looks like and sounds like and feels like. And that's what we want. You grow up watching TV and you just see these problems are solved in 30 minutes and everybody gets along and it's a fantasy that we want and it's obtainable, but people have to start taking responsibility for their own neediness, their own shame, their own inadequacies, the parts of them that they don't like. Most people don't do that. Most people take that and shame others. You can't make people uncomfortable and not have them shame you back, and that is very sad because that uncomfortable place is where growth lives and takes place. If you spend your life in this safe cocoon, you're never going to grow. If you're never challenged or challenge yourself, you're never going to grow. You're going to stay stuck in whatever emotional developmental stage where the most abuse took place. I don't know how old I am emotionally. Part of me feels like I'm 175, and the other part of me feels like I'm 12. And I guess on any given day or any given hour, it could be either. But I work on both parts. I try to see the value inside of me. And I also try to see the parts of me that I don't value. See, that's my responsibility. Putting it on my kids. I know how I want my kids to be. I know how I want my kids to make me feel. It doesn't matter. It's not their job. It's not their responsibility. It is mine. They're children. They are children. They're going to have enough time going through adolescence. They got enough on their plate. They don't need to take care of my loneliness, my neediness, my shame, my depression, my sadness, the things I'm inadequate about. That's not their responsibility. It is a crime for me to put that on them. And I don't do it perfect. And there are times that I do it not knowing that I do it, but I always get this feeling in my chest, in my gut, that something about it wasn't right. And then I look at it. And it may take one night or it may take me 9 months. But eventually I'll figure it out. And that's what we needed our parents to do for us. See, if you have an alcoholic father and he's focusing on alcohol, and you have a codependent mother who's focusing on the father's drinking, who's there for you? They should both be focusing on the child. They should have had some of this stuff worked out, or they shouldn't have had kids. I never wanted kids because I didn't know if I was going to repeat my past. I love my kids. I am so glad that I had went down that road. And I'm learning how to be the parent to myself that I needed by how I'm parenting my kids. I parent my kids like I wanted to be parented. And somehow magically, that turns into me parenting myself the same way. We have to reparent ourselves. Your childhood's gone, it's done. There's nothing you can do about it. You can go back to those people and you could try to confront them. You could try to get an apology out of them. You could try to mend fences. You could try anything you want. Childhood's gone. You have to parent yourself the way that you wanted to be parented. And you can do it. Just take the time and find the patience for yourself. Think about how you are when you see a little child. How warm and open and loving you feel when you look at this little innocent being, this helpless, dependent being. Try to look at yourself that way. Try to parent yourself as you feel you deserve to be parented. It changes everything. Your self-perception of yourself changes it all. Look at it differently. Look at it more positive. Look at yourself as a child if you have to. Make the changes. Do things for yourself. Love yourself. Care for yourself. You are the only one who can change how you feel about you. Might as well start now. Time is ticking. Thanks for listening. You can contact me at joeryan.com. Follow me on Instagram at joeryan. And if you want, you can leave us a review on iTunes. That'd be great. All right, take care.